All right, so get this. Thousands of people in Indonesia, all handwriting the entire Bible. It's pretty mind-blowing, right?
It is, and it's not just the scale of it. It really gets you thinking about the Bible's impact, you know? Like, what does it say about its cultural significance, the dedication of these people?
Yeah, it makes you wonder what drives that kind of devotion. Luckily, we've got some Indonesian news articles that dive into the whole thing. They really paint a vivid picture.
Oh, that's great. And you know what's interesting? This wasn't some random gathering. It was a planned event, a Bible Handwriting Marathon, organized by the Fellowship of Churches in Papua. They were celebrating 170 years of Christianity in the region.
Wow, a marathon. So we're not talking about a quick copy and paste job here. This was serious dedication. And to top it off, they actually set a world record.
They did. The Indonesian World Record Museum, MURI, recognized it.
3,870 participants, all focused for a full hour. Just picturing that level of concentration is impressive. I'm curious, did the articles mention anything about what motivated these people to participate?
They did. One article quotes Reverend Bambang Norsena. He gave a sermon at the event. He talked about how the Bible is the most translated book in the world. Like, it can cross any language barrier, any culture, and that really resonated with the people there.
It's true. We hear about the Bible's global reach, but we rarely stop to think about why it's so universally appealing.
Reverend Norsena also addressed the whole question of the Bible's authenticity. Like, there are people who claim it's been falsified over time, but he pushed back on that.
That's a big debate, for sure.
He pointed out that the oldest manuscripts we have are actually really close to the time they were written.
Oh, that's interesting. It's easy to forget we have these ancient texts that directly connect us to the source.
Yeah.
It's not just stories passed down through whispers.
Exactly. And Reverend Norsena even mentioned that these manuscripts are only a few decades removed from the original writings, and they're written on papyrus, which is pretty significant, right?
Right. That definitely adds weight to the argument for the accuracy of the scriptures. It kind of undercuts those claims of major alterations.
It does. And Reverend Norsena connected this directly back to the event itself. He basically said it was a testament to how much the Manokwari Christians love the Word of God. It was about reaffirming that connection.
It's more than just a ceremony or a record-breaking feat. It's a statement of faith.
Exactly. He even said, and I quote, "Through this activity, the children of God in Manokwari and Papua show respect for the Word of God and magnify the Word of God from the land of Papua." You can really feel the pride in their words.
I can only imagine. Okay, so we've heard from the religious leaders, but the articles mentioned another perspective I thought was interesting. What about Luksen Jems Mayor, the head of the Ministry of Religion's regional office? His take seemed to go beyond the purely religious aspect.
Yeah, he focused more on the cultural implications. He saw the event as something that contributes to the world's heritage. He emphasized this idea of gotong royong, which means a collaborative spirit. It's really important in Indonesian culture.
Gotong royong, I love that. 3,870 people working together for a common purpose. Really embodies that concept.
It really does. And gotong royong is more than just helping out. It's about sharing the responsibility for your community's well-being.
So it goes beyond a one-time event. It reflects a deeper societal value.
Absolutely. And Mayor even went a step further. He called for unity between different faiths. He saw this event as an example of how different religious communities can work together.
It's amazing how this act of handwriting the Bible becomes a symbol for so much. Faith, cultural heritage, national unity, and even interfaith dialogue. So much to unpack from one event.
It really highlights how powerful symbols can be, how a single act can have so many layers of meaning. And what's fascinating is this event, rooted in Indonesian culture, actually has global implications. It makes you think about the Bible's wider impact, how it's translated and shared all over the world.
You're right. That's a whole other aspect of this story we need to explore. The Bible's reach goes way beyond Indonesia. We're talking about a text translated into thousands of languages, shaping cultures across the globe.
It's an incredible story of cultural exchange and adaptation. And that's where we're heading next. We're going to dive into the world of Bible translation, the challenges, the triumphs, the sheer scale of it all, and most importantly, why it matters.
This is where things get really interesting. Stick with us as we explore how this ancient text finds new life in diverse cultures all over the world.
It really is mind-boggling when you think about the sheer scale of Bible translation.
I know, right? It's incredible. Like, how many languages are we talking about? Do you have any figures?
Yeah, I do. Over 3,000 languages have at least some parts of the Bible translated. and over 700 have the full text.
That's amazing. So does that mean there are still thousands more languages waiting for their own translation?
Sadly, yes. There are over 3,000 languages that don't have any Bible translation yet. And, it's not as simple as just swapping words. It's about ensuring the message actually makes sense within a specific culture. That can be a real challenge.
Yeah, it's like you're solving a cultural puzzle on top of the linguistic one.
Exactly. Think about something like the concept of faith. It could have a completely different meaning in different parts of the world, right?
Oh, absolutely. What might be a basic idea in one culture could be incredibly nuanced in another. It must be a delicate process, finding the right words and metaphors to bridge those gaps.
It really is. The goal isn't to force a foreign worldview on someone. It's about making the text accessible and meaningful to people within their own cultural understanding.
It makes sense. It's about translating the meaning, not just the words.
Yeah, and capturing the spirit of the text, too.
Do you have any examples where this cultural adaptation was particularly difficult? Like, were there any concepts that were tricky to translate?
Well, one that comes to mind is anything related to salvation or redemption. These ideas are deeply rooted in Christian theology, but they might not have direct equivalents in cultures with different religious beliefs. So translators have to get creative to convey these ideas without changing their original meaning.
Wow, that must be tough. It's like trying to explain quantum physics to someone who's never even heard of atoms. You'd have to build a whole foundation of understanding first.
That's a great analogy. And that's why cultural consultants are so important in this process. They work hand in hand with the translators, providing insights into local customs and beliefs.
So it's a real team effort. It sounds like it requires way more than just knowing the languages.
Oh, definitely. It takes sensitivity, cultural awareness, and a deep respect for the people these translations are intended for.
Okay, so back to those numbers we talked about earlier. Thousands of languages still need translations. What's being done to tackle that? Seems like a huge undertaking.
It is, but the good news is technology is making the whole process much faster and more efficient. Translators can collaborate online, share resources, and access these massive linguistic databases.
That's amazing. It's like technology is bringing the ancient art of translation into the modern age.
Exactly. Things like machine learning and AI can even automate certain parts of the process. That frees up the human translators to focus on the more nuanced aspects, the parts that need that cultural sensitivity.
So it's like a combination of high-tech tools and human expertise working together.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole field so fascinating. It brings together language, culture, technology, and faith. It's always evolving, finding new ways to connect people with this ancient text.
We've been talking about the how-to of translation, but I'm wondering about the why. What's driving all these efforts? Why is it so important to make the Bible accessible to everyone in every language?
That's a great question, and it gets to the heart of why this event in Indonesia and all these translation efforts are so meaningful. It's because the Bible is more than just a book. It's a source of inspiration, guidance, and hope for so many people.
And for many, it goes beyond just religious doctrine, right? It's about the stories, the characters, the wisdom it contains. It speaks to something deeper in the human experience.
Absolutely. Think about the parables, the teachings, the poetry in Psalms. These resonate with people regardless of their background.
And that connection must be even stronger when you can experience the text in your own language in a way that feels culturally relevant to you.
Exactly. It's about creating a sense of ownership, making the text come alive in a way that speaks to you directly.
This reminds me of something Luksen Jems Mayor said. He talked about the Manokwari event, adding to the world's cultural heritage.
Yes. It wasn't just about spreading a specific faith, it was about contributing to the richness of human expression. And I think that idea applies to all of these Bible translation efforts.
It's about recognizing the value of different languages, different cultures, different ways of seeing the world. It's about building a global tapestry where everyone can find meaning in this ancient text.
And that's what makes the Bible so fascinating. It's not some fixed, unchanging thing. It's a living text that keeps evolving as it encounters new languages and cultures.
It's like a conversation that's been going on for centuries, and it's always being enriched by new voices and interpretations.
And that's what we're doing here today, right?
Yeah.
Adding our own voices to the mix. But the real question is, what does the Bible mean to you? It really is a question that gets you thinking, isn't it? We've been talking about this huge global impact, but at the end of the day, it's about that personal connection.
It is. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the Bible. It can mean so many different things to different people.
Right. For some, it might be a specific story that resonates or a verse they find comfort in. Maybe it's a moral teaching that guides them.
It's almost like the Bible holds a mirror up to us. We see ourselves, our hopes and struggles, reflected in its pages.
And you know what's interesting? Those reflections can change as we go through life. Our understanding of the Bible evolves as we do.
It's not just about reading the words, is it? It's about that back and forth, asking questions, wrestling with ideas, letting the text challenge you.
Exactly, and that's what I think was so powerful about the event in Manokwari. Those thousands of people weren't just copying, they were actively engaging with the text, reaffirming their faith.
It's like they were breathing new life into the words, making them their own.
Yeah, and by doing that, they were carrying on a tradition that's been going on for centuries. Copying, translating, interpreting. It's a continuous process that keeps the Bible relevant.
So as we wrap up our deep dive today, I think the best takeaway is this. Go explore the Bible yourself. See what it has to say to you, in your own way.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.